Hello and welcome to Taiwan Talks. I'm EP325. As the democratic world and beyond mourns Putin critic Alexei Navalny, who died in a Russian Arctic prison, we turn to fellow autocracy, China, and ask whether a Navalny could exist in the communist system. We also examine the legacy of Taiwan's sunflower movement on its 10th anniversary this month. Joining us to discuss this are Lin Fei-fan, former Democratic Progressive Party Deputy Secretary General and New Frontier Foundation board member. Also, we have Jasmine Lee, U.S Taiwan Watch co-editor. A very warm welcome to you both on the show today. Alexei Navalny was a fearless, charismatic leader who gained international attention after he survived a nerve agent poisoning in 2020. He galvanized Russian resistance to Vladimir Putin and became his biggest opponent.
Я считаю, уверен и заявляю, что не являются хозяевами нашей страны и никогда не будут являться. И огромное количество людей, десятки миллионов людей согласны со мной.
In the early 2010s, he rose to prominence within Russia, exposing the corruption of the Russian elite, at first through his website, Anti-Corruption Foundation. After the poisoning and 5 months recuperation in Germany, Navalny returned to Russia in January 2021, where he was promptly arrested and thrown into prison. It wasn't the first time he had been jailed. From prison, Navalny maintained contact with his family, team and followers through letters, court appearances and the prison correspondence website. In December 2023, Navalny was transferred to a notorious polar wolf colony. On February 16th, Russian authorities said Navalny died of natural causes after he fell during a walk. His supporters dispute this account, saying he was murdered by President Putin. Okay, let me start with Jasmine first. So when we ask the question, could a Navalny exist in China, the name that often comes up is that of the late Nobel Peace Prize winning Liu Xiaobo, a literary critic, human rights activist who co-wrote Charter 08. That document sets out the gradual shifting of China's political system to that of a democracy. So let's discuss, Jasmine, what these two men shared in common.
Yeah, so I think both of them are extremely courageous, confronting dictators, and especially such a strong and powerful dictator. And I think also both of them give people hope that maybe we're seeing China and Russia right now, they are going forward to this trajectory towards this very authoritarianism. And maybe they can let this trajectory going backward. So I think that's reason why the passing of these two very brave dissident is such a despair for a lot of people, because it's simply telling us that there's no hope anymore.
Fei-fan, you know, both pushed for democracy, both believed fervently that their countries could become democracies.
Yeah, I think even in China nowadays, there are still many people that they haven't abandoned hope. They still hope that China one day could become a democracy. So I believe that there are still some people are willing to fight for their own freedom and democracy in China, and to stand out to fighting against the Communist Party, the CCP. In Hong Kong especially, we saw that many young people had in the past years, a lot of them are participating in massive social movements. Since 2014 to 2019, there is actually a continued efforts. While the social conditions, I would say that the Chinese social condition and political condition is rather more rough than the political condition in Russia, because you see that every single small movement can be stopped and can every single individuals can be arrested without any kind of formal notice, or they can be disappeared. But even in that condition, they still found that there are many young people that they are willing to fighting for their freedom.
Now let's talk about the differences between the Chinese and Russian systems.
Yeah, so I think when we're looking at Navalny and Liu Xiaobo, we still have to look into what's their rhetoric, or what's their narratives. And so if you look into Navalny's rhetorics, he's actually mentioned a lot about, he's also a nationalist, a lot of people are saying that, and he also supported annexation against Crimea academia and back in 2014. So I think when we're looking at them, of course we admire them. Navalny was calling for the anti-corruption, but we shouldn't fall into this kind of mindset thinking the enemies of my enemy is my friend. I think we still need, when we're looking at them, we still need to understand them separately. But talking about Navalny, actually, I think he's one thing I really want to mention is that he's social media savvy. He's really good at it. I started to follow his Instagram starting from around like 2018. And the reason is because so many of my friends, they're also like sharing his posts. So he's really, really good at mobilizing through social media.
Absolutely. And Fei-fan, that was a point that you just made, that in China, anybody, as soon as they get any sort of slight fame or influence, then they're immediately shut down. I mean, can you imagine in China somebody who is communicating with his followers, growing his following, organizing protests and rallies?
It's pretty hard to imagine that China has that kind of conditions or that kind of environment that people can stand out and say something. For the most recent example is that the white paper revolutions, A4 revolution. What they can do is like they have the one chance to stand out and using that white paper to symbolize the protest and to do further protests. But just couple days later, they were all gone, disappears, and it's likely that all the voices have been shut down. And Hong Kong's people, well, they once had a great chance, very open space for them to speak up, but now you can see that a lot of journalists are following the legislation of the national security law, the new national security law, and want to ask every individual Hong Kong's citizens their opinion. No one on the street would dare to comment on these issues. So that's the society in China. It's pretty much, I think it's harder for them in China to say something rather than in Russia.
Okay, I want to take us now to an interview that I did with a Chinese scholar. I posed to him the question of whether Chinese dissidents enjoyed the level of free speech that Navalny enjoyed. He is Ming Xia, who is also a professor of political science at City University of New York's College of Staten Island. Take a look.
The Chinese, no matter you think about its communism or you think about its autocracy, if you compare it to Russia or to the former Soviet Union, and I think Chinese communism and the Chinese autocracy are much, much brutal than the Russian types. And so to some extent, if you think about Lenin once said, the Russian autocracy was a semi-Oriental despotism, but China is 100% pure Oriental despotism.
You've also spoken to me about the lack of traction within the Chinese populace, about how there have been very brave dissidents, critics of the CCP. However, you felt that their sacrifices came to nothing.
Right, and because the Chinese, especially, they were traumatized after the anti-rightist movement, after the Great Famine, after the Cultural Revolution, and also after Tiananmen crackdown in 1999. So for too many Chinese, I think they have suffered this post-traumatic, post-trauma syndrome. So this is why I do not think this several generations of Chinese, they are going to create democracy. But today, we have a different group of Chinese. I am thinking about the Chinese. They were born after 1979. And it means they already got rid of the trauma. And then they were born most as the only child in the family. And then they grew up and through the process of China's economic prosperity and the urbanization and the improvement of education and also globalization. And that is also the backbone for the blank paper revolution. I think they are the hope for China. And on the one hand, we understand the Chinese regime is very brutal. And it is the biggest totalitarian system in human history because they have the biggest totalitarian party and they have the second largest economy, the second largest population in human history, the third largest territory. But I think we also cannot exaggerate two points. One is we always think China is too big to fail. But actually, China is too big. Therefore, it's easy for a big, complex system to collapse.
Can you also talk to me about the importance of hope?
Right. And I think at this moment, the Chinese government is very successful in dashing any hope among the Chinese people. And so you can find the propaganda machine and also the repressive cartel in terms of Guobao, the state security agency, or Guoan, the state security agency, and also in terms of the army, the so-called the gun barrel, and also the police. And so in terms of the dagger, right? So the Chinese government is using either the intimidation and direct threat, or using propaganda machine, brainwashing, and to make the Chinese people realize you don't have hope. You don't have any chance to win. And no country is going to help you. And no system is better than the Chinese system. And even you can win a battle to get democracy, but democracy is not as good as what we have. And we are democracy. Actually, we are a better democracy. So you can find the Chinese government has been very successful in creating such kind of delusion and also such kind of loss of orientation among the Chinese.
That was Professor Ming Xia of City University of New York speaking to me earlier. Now, Freedom House rated both Russia and China as not free in its 2023 Freedom in the World report, which analyses political rights and civil liberties in a given country. Russia received a total of 16 points, while China received 9, near the bottom of the report's 100-point scale. In contrast, Taiwan received 94 points and was rated free. Jasmine, let me come to you. So what do we know about China today under Xi Jinping, its civil liberties, its political rights?
Yeah, there's a term called digital authoritarianism, and I think that's so technology has become a tools for Chinese dictator to strengthen their rule to every single corners of the society. I used to talk to a journalist who used to work in China earlier, and she told me that before 2016, when there is a major event happen in China, they will receive a guideline from the government, mainly telling them not some red zone they cannot go reporting on.
So that was prior to Xi Jinping becoming president?
Before 2016. Right. So before he started to really strengthening his power, so they were so after they received that guideline, they were started to explore other things that it's not on the guideline. But after 2016, they no longer provide this guideline to them. So a lot of journalists and people doing reporting, they start to have this self-censoring. And I think that is even worse, making people, when people start to, because they don't know when will they step on the red flag. So I think that's even worse for the situation now in China.
Fei-fan, very interesting point that Jasmine made about self-censoring being almost worse than the censoring from the state. What do you believe?
So I think that the current status of the Chinese civil society, the development is actually very coherent with the what CCP's strategy is. The CCP strategy, especially after Xi Jinping took power in 2012, you can see the whole trend of like they want to gather more power and try to influence every corner of society, as what Jasmine has said. That in this past of 10 years, we can say that since 2012, you see every single policies conducted by CCP, from they raise the idea of like China dreams, and they have the idea and policies of One Belt and Road initiative, and they're squeezing the civil society space in Hong Kong since 2012, in Xinjiang and Tibet. and the domestic environment is being shrinking in a great deal. That it's not everyone can have the original rights in the past they have. So the whole civil society is shrinking down, like not so many space for them. And
many would actually argue that there is no proper civil society in China, just like there's no opposition. Like overseas, that are building police stations or appointed police officers to different countries to implement Chinese influence and laws, like in what happens before in Thailand and what happens before in Cambodia, and they can extradite people from those countries to China. They can send the criminals or some people who have been persecuted from those countries to China as well. And so you're not just talking about the territory of Hong Kong, but you mentioned Cambodia and Thailand. So these are places that you're saying that they want to export the system of authoritarianism to. I can definitely see that, Jasmine, it's increasing fear, spreading fear, and distinguishing hope. I mean, you are safe nowhere, that kind of that idea. Let's talk about more Chinese dissidents. Ren Zhiqiang, the property tycoon blogger, who is nicknamed the Cannon for his writing, criticized the CCP's insistence on the party rather than the people, and especially Xi Jinping's handling of COVID. Navalny actually wrote individual letters to his friends and family and followers, but also through a website in the prison service. People could actually write to Navalny and receive scans of his responses. Now, what have we heard from Ren Zhiqiang since he's been imprisoned?
I don't hear much, and as I mentioned, I think the digital authoritarianism that CCP that they are doing right now, it's like shutting down all of the channels that this dissident can have and to communicate with outsiders. So I'm pretty pessimistic about the situation right now in China, and I don't think that dissident you see a lot of dissidents, but a lot of them receive support from abroad. They have a lot of supporters, or they are using YouTube channel, which is the platform that is not allowed in China. So even if they have so many audience base, I don't see that can become a real power to really become a threat to the dictator.
Yeah, to mobilize support is just not possible in China. Let's have a look on a related point. Teacher Lee. Now, he's actually a painter, and he's based in Italy, which is important. His avatar on Twitter is a cat. He became the central information source for China's COVID protests by posting anonymous footage, live updates. But all of this, of course, was outside of China and sent to him by people in China suffering the restrictions of COVID. Fei-fan, let me come to you. So the CCP, they simply do not allow any freedom of expression. They own the media. They also own the telecommunications infrastructure. This means, of course, that they can shut down websites, anything that they want, apps.
So talking about the self-censorship, I really want to add one point is that those self-censorship will not just restrict to the people in China or people in Hong Kong. It's actually nationwide, international-wide. For example, that I remember very clearly that when my friends in Hong Kong, they were all, most of them have been sentenced to jail and now all imprisoned. And even nowadays, we wouldn't dare to write a single letter to them because we are kind of worried. Even we are in Taiwan, writing a letter is something that is quite usual, that is free, right? And people are worried that, including me, I have been officially sanctioned by China since 2 years ago when Pelosi's visit to Taiwan. So I've been in the sanction list alongside with Ming Xia, the VP-elect of Taiwan.
And so that was Nancy Pelosi, the former U.S. House Speaker.
Yeah. So since that, actually, a lot of Southeast Asian countries, I wouldn't dare to go as well because, for example, there's some Hong Kong activists and book publishers being arrested in Thailand and some of the Southeast Asian countries. If you want to have that kind of control, you need to gain more technology support and all the controls of different apps and data, and also media platforms. You have to have the whole control of the society.
So when you heard about Navalny being able to write letters from prison and to his supporters, what did that make you think?
There are two types of totalitarianism, and CCP is simply better than Putin than Putin's control over Russia. I believe that they learned the lesson, especially, CCP learned the lesson from the 1989 Tiananmen Square's movement. The student movement after that, I think after 1989, they kind of have this agenda and strategy to kind of separate and divide the civil society and using greater control of the technology to control the people. I think that's an agenda. They learned the lesson.
Finally, Jasmine, just to conclude this section, what's your conclusion? Is a Navalny possible in communist China?
Overall, I'm really pessimistic.
Okay. Now, in one of his last known letters, Alexei Navalny concluded that if South Korea and Taiwan were able to transition from dictatorship to democracy, then perhaps Russia could too. Navalny ended the letter with these words: "Hope, I've got no problem with it." And so on to democratic Taiwan, where here it's the 10th anniversary of the Sunflower Movement, which was a student-led protest that brought Taiwan's parliament to a standstill from March 18th to April 9th, 2014. So firstly, Fei-fan, you were a protest leader at the time. Can you tell us what was it that the Sunflowers rose up against?
Yeah, the basic idea of the Sunflower Movement rose up fighting against is the agenda of the cross-strait relations set by KMT at the time. So our aim is to stop the cross-strait services trade agreement during that time. It's a very controversial trade agreement between Taiwan and China.
Why was it so controversial?
Yeah, that particular trade agreement actually opened up Taiwan's service sectors, service industry to Chinese market. In Taiwan, we have 4 million people actually serving in the service industry. Yeah. So if we allow that Chinese market, Chinese investment to come over to Taiwan for investments, it would easily become like China's big companies and service industry. They can just very easily to buy the Taiwanese smaller enterprise. So they will gradually control our service industry.
So you mean that the economic dependency would then lead to political?
Yeah. Okay. So that's the main worry that we have during that time. Yeah. So and especially you look at the context of those years between 2008 to 2016. Now, many young people that they're looking at finding a job in China once they graduate from the college, and the government's propaganda at the time, and also CCP's propaganda, is that Chinese market is on the rise. So there's a bunch of opportunities. So you can go there and finding jobs, and rather than stay in Taiwan. And we have the low salaries.
Okay, Jasmine, I want to explore, obviously, the legacy of the Sunflower Movement, why it was important, but perhaps we can ask the question the other way around, which is, if the Sunflower Movement had not happened, what would Taiwan be today?
Actually, I think it's Sunflower Movement or student rights movement. It's inevitable. From my point of view, and there's 2 reasons. One of the reasons is that the maturing of Taiwanese democracy, and the second reason is the consolidation of Taiwanese identity. And so before Sunflower Movement, it was the Wild Lily student movement, and that was the main idea is demanding this reform of Taiwanese political system. And that you can see it's a process when Taiwan's democracy has started to mature and people are demanding a better quality of the democracy. And then if moving forward, you can also see the trend of Taiwanese identities consolidating. And then so you can see Sunflower Movement is calling for both of them. It's to reform a Taiwanese democratic system, and the second is also we don't want it to be the whole economy integrated with China.
Okay, so they couldn't not have been a form of the Sunflower Movement. Fei-fan, I mean, you're obviously right in the middle of it. Tell us, for you, if you were to summarize the legacy of the Sunflower Movement 10 years on, tell us what it is.
Yeah, I think the main legacy of the Sunflower Movement, I would say that is the movement redefined our relationship with the world and our relationship with China. Yeah, in the past, that usually only the KMT or the government can have a say regarding our relationship with China. But Taiwan is a civil society, have a strong opinions on our future to China. So I think that changed the whole mindset of Taiwanese people, and people understand that we can have a say to influence our own future, and we can decide our relationship with China. So it's not just a right belongs to a small group of political elite. It's actually a massive civil society can have a say to influence our own future, and we can decide the government's policy as well. So I would say that that movement actually strengthened our democracy rather than undermine it. Yeah.
Absolutely. And on that note, we're going to have to wrap it up. Thank you so much, Lin Fei-fan and Jasmine Lee, for joining Taiwan Talks today. If you liked our show, please search for us on YouTube, give us a thumbs up and hit subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching our show today. Stay safe and see you next time.